Say, hey, this is unfortunate. It became this. Okay, fine. But don't say you're sorry. You don't even fucking mean it, Kathy Griffin. Anyway. She goes with that bullshit apology on Instagram and says, oh, I'm sorry I got caught. I'm sorry people were mad. Sorry not sorry, hashtag. Hashtag sorry not sorry. Whatever. Donald Trump and his family goes on Twitter. Now this is ridiculous as well. Back to the decorum of a president. The way you handle this shit as a president, in my humble opinion, is that you do not tweet out that it was sick. You don't do things like that. Instead, what you do is you ignore the bitch because she wants your attention. This woman wants your attention, Donald Trump, and you just gave into it. You gave her all the attention she wanted. And of course, everybody goes to Twitter to put out their statements about how disgusting this was. Everybody goes to Twitter and puts out their thoughts, Anderson Cooper included, about how deplorable this photo shoot was and how deplorable the release was and how poor the taste was that it was done in. Okay, sure. All right. God, everybody just puts things out on Twitter these days. Like your prayers for Manchester are going to do anything. Like your thoughts and prayers are going to do anything. Are you really thinking and praying at that time? Or are you just typing something out so that your friends can say how wonderful of a human being you are? Think about that next time you put that out. Anyway, so, Kathy Griffin. Yesterday she goes to do a press conference. Excuse me. The obligatory press conference. She has her lawyer there. Her typical feminist lawyer. You know the ones I'm talking about. Those typical people who are basically at every, they're ambulance chasers. They're ambulance chasers on a higher level. They go wherever the trouble is, and they get their clients. Or they already have clients that are high profile, and they know that they're loose cannons, like Kathy Griffin, and they just go to them just in case anything happens, and boy, something happened here. So she goes up and goes on a rant about how horrible Donald Trump is, and how horrible the situation is, and that Kathy Griffin's just a comedian. And that she just makes people laugh, and why is she losing her gig over something that she did? Why does she have to be held to a standard? Why does she have to be held to a standard? Damn it, she's on the side of people who are right. She can do whatever she wants. It's another part of liberal media that bothers me. Just because you are part of the so-called liberal movement, just because you're part of Antifa, just because you're in Antifa doesn't mean you can throw a mask on your head and fucking break windows. Just because you don't like what Donald Trump is doing, or you think this country is in a hole, that doesn't mean you can go out and burn shit. Just because somebody's speaking at your school that you don't agree with, that doesn't mean you can destroy your school, Berkeley. What good does that do? It's like the riots in Los Angeles. Hey, let's burn down our own shit. Let's burn down the liquor store who we have no problem with because we're mad. The fuck does that do? It does nothing. It does nothing. Of course, Kathy Griffin's not the first person to put something terrible out against a president. A piece of media that is completely insulting. For 8 years, we had a president who could not get anything passed in Congress because he was black. That's right. Not because he had differences, or not because of anything. It was because he was different. He was different. It's because they just could not possibly comprehend the idea of agreeing with a man named Barack Obama. He could have come up with something perfectly sensical. And sometimes he did. I didn't agree with everything he did, but sometimes he did. And he did a hell of a fine job in a lot of ways as president. In spite of Congress not wanting to pass a damn thing that he put out there. He was a straw man. He was the Democrats saying, hey, we're hip and we're cool. Look who we got. Look who we got. We got Barack Obama. This guy's hip. He's cool. He gets the younger generation. We're the Pepsi of a new generation, said the Democratic Party. And there were terrible things put up about Obama. Things referencing slavery and all sorts of horrible acts. And if anyone who was public, like Kathy Griffin is, if anyone who had a following, or anyone who was, I don't know, famous, had done something like that about Barack Obama, you know there would be hell to pay. But all the people who did these terrible things about Barack Obama, you know, pictures of him hanging and pictures of, they weren't famous. That's what people forget. Obama had all the celebrities in his pocket. Most of them. This that Kathy Griffin did was unprecedented. And there's a person in the chat room, my buddy Joe, telling me that I'm crying about what Kathy Griffin did. You know what Kathy Griffin did, she had every right to do. But as I said before, as I said earlier in this broadcast, you do something stupid, you do something to hurt yourself, then you need to accept the consequences. That's called responsibility. And just because CNN fires her for doing this, it doesn't mean that it was Donald Trump's fault. Yeah, he did his little Twitter game, which I don't agree with, but people, it's called personal responsibility. That's what's lacking. I'm going to sound like an old man here, but it seems like the young of this generation want everything given to them. That's not how it works. That is not how this shit works. It's not how it's ever worked. Yeah, you can get welfare for a while. Yeah, you can get a hand up, not a hand out. But that's not a way of life. It's not a way of life. That is basically a way of saying you're worthless. That's a way of saying you are completely and utterly worthless, and you cannot do anything without someone's help. And just... Now what was funny is Joe Seeker in the chat room, and this gets me in trouble sometimes, but I think this interaction with the chat room is actually going to help. Joe Seeker in the chat room says, who paid for your freedom, Alan? Who paid for my freedom? The veterans. The veterans of foreign wars paid for my freedom. People who defended this country. And those people were of every color. Those people were of every color, of every creed. And you know, Who served while you played drums? Everybody. I know he's trying to get a rise out of me, and I appreciate that. I do better when I get a rise out of me, or when somebody gets a rise out of me, but yeah, brave men and women who decided to go the military route. Brave men and women who decided to fight for our country. And I have nothing but respect for veterans. I have veterans in my family. Nothing but respect for them. And you know what? They fought while that's funny. And Dennis says, Joan Rivers, well, I wonder what Joan Rivers has to say about Kathy Griffin. Oh. Well, we can always get out a spirit box and see if she'll contact us about it. But anyway, my point is, folks, Kathy Griffin went on a press conference and she started cracking jokes. That's fine. That's what she does. She's a comedian. She's not good at much else. She has a quick wit. She has a brain underneath that wig of red hair. She can do that. And she should have the freedom to be able to post whatever she wants. But when the shit hits the fan, she should not go blaming other people for what she did. She apologized, but she wasn't really sorry. She holds a press conference blaming everybody else but herself. Maybe she said, yeah, that was not the right thing to do. But it was not... She had no empathy. She had no emotion about it. And it's all because this Donald Trump's a bad hombre. All right, fine. Let's get this out of the way. Donald Trump's a dick, okay? Donald Trump's a businessman. And he was elected the 45th President of the United States. He was elected the 45th President of the United States. We're stuck with him for the next 3.5 years unless something amazingly crazy comes out, and they're trying everything. The media and private investigations are trying, private investigators, public investigators, FBI, CIA, everybody's trying to come up with shit to get Donald Trump on, and he's still there. Now, if they do find something that violates the office of the presidency, by all means, impeach the bastard, put him on trial, and get him out of there. But until then, protest. Do what you... And you know what? Go to a fucking polling booth. Do you know that half the country didn't vote last year? Half the country just said, fuck it, I'm not going to vote. And now what are they doing? And now what are they doing? They're complaining about this bullshit. Joe says this is boring, so I think I'm going to wrap up the show with some fun here in a little while. I'm going to get off my political soapbox. By the way, I have a new idea for this platform. I'm going to be cutting up pieces of this podcast. In fact, this is going to be the last time you hear it. For I'm going to download it, and then I'm going to cut pieces up of it, and then I'm going to make it into different podcasts for each day of the week. So kind of like a highlight show. And those will be releasing every day at 6 p.m. Pacific time. And then it will lead into a Saturday live show, and then I'll just start the shit all over again. So if there's anything you'd like to listen to again, it'll be there on Random Bites on my page. Belvedere coming up, followed by Everlasting Blaze, Puzzle Cuts, and then Little Short Stories here on the Random Internet Radio Show. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being part of the program. My name is Alan Wayne, and I will be back with, I assure you, some less political talk. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Random Internet Radio Show on Spreaker.com.